This is from Howard Zinn's People's History of the U.S. An infantry lieutenant wrote to his parents what happened after an officer named Walker was killed in battle. General Lane told us to, quote, avenge the death of the gallant Walker, to take all we could lay hands on, and well and fearfully was his mandate obeyed. Grog shops were broken open first, and then, maddened with liquor, every species of outrage was committed. Old women and girls were stripped of their clothing, and many suffered still greater outrages. Men were shot by dozens. Their property, churches, stores, and dwelling houses ransacked. Dead horses and men lay about, pretty thick, while drunken soldiers, yelling and screeching, were breaking open houses or chasing some poor Mexicans who had abandoned their houses and fled for life. Such a scene I never hope to see again. It gave me a lamentable view of human nature.
I can't hear you.
It gave me a lamentable view of human nature and made me for the first time ashamed of my country. That was an infantry lieutenant in Mexico in the Mexican-American War. Now what is this? This is the Haditha killings in Iraq. Occurred on November 19, 2005. A convoy of U.S. Marines was attacked with an IED which killed Lance Corporal Miguel Terraza. Up to 24 Iraqis were subsequently killed. It is alleged that they were non-combatant local residents who were massacred by the Marines in revenge for the insurgent attack. Now here's an interesting song that was written at the time by Americans, the Mexican War. Author unknown, and there's a word here that you might not know. Free and Easy was sort of a roadhouse and bar. You'll recognize the melody. The Mexicans are doomed to fall, God has in wrath forsook 'em, and all their goods and chattels call on us to go and hook 'em. Where the boys from Mexico sing Yankee Doodle Dandy, gold and silver images, plentiful and handy. Churches grand with altars rich, saints with diamond collars. That's the talk to understand with lots of bright new dollars. The Mexicans have cut up high, and we have let 'em do it till they have got our dander risen. Now they'll have to rue it. The Mexicans are doomed to fail. God has in wrath forsook 'em. The Mexicans are doomed to fall. God has in wrath forsook 'em, and now and all their goods and chattels call on us to go and hook 'em. We have a corps of editors, each with a mighty bellows, to strike a mortal terror in them tarnal Spanish fellows. And when we've laid aside our arms with nothing more to vex us, we'll vote ourselves extensive farms, each one as big as Texas, where the boys from Mexico sing Yankee Doodle Dandy, gold and silver images, plentiful and handy. And when our flag has been upheld and crushed lies each presumer, we'll open free and easies in the halls of Montezuma, where the boys from Mexico sing Yankee Doodle Dandy, gold and silver images, plentiful and handy. Very skillful song.
So they didn't even have weapons of mass destruction, right?
Well, I don't know, the diseases maybe they brought with them would have destroyed quite a bunch. Here's another, can you focus in on this? Another
right.
very famous incident of the Mexican War.
All right.
It shows about 20. No,
It's hard to see that.
it shows. It looks like there were about 40 of them. They were American deserters, who a lot of them Irish Catholics, some Germans, who somehow thought they'd been finagled into the army, didn't like what was going on, and they joined up with Mexico. They're heroes of Mexico, and they called the St. Patrick's or the San Patricio Battalion.
Huh.
And they were lined up like this, and when on wagons with ropes around their necks, and when the city of Chapultepec fell, they were hung immediately. Have the wagons drive away, 40 at a time.
Mm.
Very economical. You don't need those illegal death drugs in the arm. You just use the horses and this other thing here is can you get that?
It doesn't. I
pile of
can't tell if
skulls.
we're getting it. Yeah.
That was another candidate, I think, who was a general from Mexico who was opposing Polk, but his enemies said that all he was good for, this candidate, he lost the election, was making piles of skulls. In other words, he was only good for killing, whereas the president, Polk, who won, this is Zachary Taylor. Did he become president later? Who knows? Anyway, here is someone else you recognize on a pack of skulls. But I'd like to read finally for this section. Henry David Thoreau on civil disobedience for 1848. Some of you will remember that he went to jail in a tax protest against the Mexican War. He refused to pay taxes, so they threw him in jail in Massachusetts, I guess. Was it Concord? And he was freed. I think Emerson went in and paid his fine. But here's what he said, wrote. A common and natural result of an undue respect for law is that you may see a file of soldiers, colonel, captain, corporal, privates, powder monkeys, and all, marching in admirable order over hill and dale to the wars against their wills, aye, against their common sense and consciences, which makes it very steep marching indeed, and produces a palpitation of the heart. They have no doubt that it is a damnable business in which they are concerned. They are all peaceably inclined. Now, what are they? Men at all, or small, movable forts and magazines, where armaments are kept. Movable forts and magazines at the service of some unscrupulous man in power. Wow. Does it remind you of anything today, like today?
I'll say it does.
All right, so now we're up to Millard Fillmore. No, I'm sorry. Zachary Taylor. He did become president later, I guess. This is a really wonderful one. You know, we're about to get another postage increase.
Yeah.
1 cent.
1 cent.
Yeah, 1 cent. And what they also got across last time they raised things was to raise prices on small magazines.
Oh! I took a picture by mistake. I don't know what happened. All right, go ahead.
All right.
Wait.
Okay. So they in the previous raising of prices, they managed to raise incredibly the very low postage rates. At one time in the U.S., you could distribute papers through the U.S. mail for free. because the papers were political and it was felt that it was a service that the government should do. Now, they've raised the prices so high that small magazines and newspapers and oppositional papers and literature will soon be prohibitively expensive. They did that on purpose.
Yeah, it's a way of getting rid of them.
Yeah. In other words, yeah. For instance,
Right.
there was a tax put on papers, I think, in England that was so onerous that they finally got it repealed. For the very purpose, they didn't want politics opposed to the ruling class. All right, so this is 1849, Zachary Taylor, President. The Act of 1845 reducing postage has now, by its operation during 4 years, produced results fully showing that the income from such reduced postage is sufficient to sustain the whole expense of the service of the Post Office Department. Boy, we could use someone like that again. Now, Millard Fillmore. Whoa. I don't remember. Oh, I see what it was. It was about the slave catchers. This is 1851. Slaves who would escape to New England and to Canada, and then slave catchers were permitted to go up there and catch them and bring them back. They got rewarded. These were like, they still do it now, I think. People, private people can catch fugitives wanted and get their rewarded. And the people of many abolitionists opposed the slave catchers and would chase them out of town. So a law was passed making that illegal, that anyone who interfered with the slave catchers would be subject to prosecution. So this is about that. A proclamation by Millard Fillmore. Whereas information has been received that sundry lawless persons, principally persons of color, freed slaves up there would help the ones that were escaping, combined and confederated together for the purpose of opposing by force the execution of the laws of the United States, did at Boston and Massachusetts on the 15th of this month make a violent assault on the marshal or deputy marshals of the United States for the District of Massachusetts in the courthouse, and did overcome the said officers, and did by force rescue from their custody a person arrested as a fugitive slave, and then and there a prisoner lawfully holden by the said marshal or deputy marshals of the United States, and other scandalous outrages did commit in violation of law. Now, therefore, to the end that the authority of the laws may be maintained, and those concerned in violating them brought to immediate and condign punishment, I have issued this my proclamation, calling on all well-disposed citizens to rally to the support of the laws of their country, and requiring and commanding all officers, civil and military, and all other persons, civil or military, who shall be found within the vicinity of this outrage, to be aiding and assisting by all means in their power in quelling this and other such combinations, and assisting the marshal and his deputies in recapturing the above-mentioned prisoner. And I do especially direct that prosecutions be commenced against all persons who shall have made themselves aiders or abettors in or to this flagitious offense. And I do further command that the District Attorney of the United States and all other persons concerned in the administration of the execution of the laws of the United States cause the foregoing offenders and all such as aided, abetted, or assisted them, or shall be found to have harbored or concealed such fugitive contrary to law, to be immediately arrested and proceeded with, according to law, given under my hand the seal of the year of the President of the U.S. this 18th day of February, 1851, Millard Fillmore. I remember just seeing a few weeks ago an account of the slave catchers in Boston on TV. Remember TV? And at one time they sent a ship there, a U.S. naval vessel. They captured this escaped slave, and the whole town sort of went up for his defense. But I guess the sailors, the U.S. sailors, came into town, and they took the slave, and the whole town was unable to stop them from taking the slave back. So another failure of direct action, but it was a mighty attempt.
I'll get you some water.
Oh, all right.
It's recording. I didn't pause. It's recording.
What's that?
It's recording.
Oh, it's recording? Okay, we'll go on.
Here. Here.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
I thought you were getting water for
No.
yourself.
No. All right. 18 minutes. So we have 9 minutes.
We have 9 minutes left to tell the history of the world.
11 minutes. 11 minutes left.
So, the people failed here, but at least they tried.
Oh, I see.
Now, this is the 14th president, Franklin Pierce. Oh, this is good. 1853. The erection of an asylum for the insane of the District of Columbia and of the Army and Navy of the United States has been somewhat retarded by the great demand for materials and labor during the past summer. But full preparation for the reception of patients before the return of another winter is anticipated, and there is the best reason to believe, from the planned and contemplated arrangements which have been devised with the large experience furnished within the last few years in relation to the nature and treatment of the disease, that it will prove an asylum indeed to this most helpless and afflicted class of sufferers. It's for the insane of the District of Columbia and of the Army and Navy of the United States. This isn't very funny, actually, since there is a crisis now of the returned veterans who are killing themselves and suffering from post-traumatic syndrome. Very funny. Anyway, next case, James Buchanan. First annual message to Congress, 1857. Whoa, I don't remember what it says, but we'll soon find out. But first and above all, our thanks are due to Almighty God for the numerous benefits which He, capital H, has bestowed upon this people, and our united prayers ought to ascend to Him, that He would continue to bless our great republic in time to come, as He has blessed it in time past. Since the adjournment of the last Congress, our constituents have enjoyed an unusual degree of health. The earth has yielded her fruits abundantly and has bountifully rewarded the toil of the husbandman. Our great staples have commanded high prices, and up till within a brief period, our manufacturing, mineral, and mechanical occupations have largely partaken of the general prosperity. We have possessed all the elements of material wealth in rich abundance, and yet, notwithstanding all these advantages, our country in its monetary interests is at the present moment in a deplorable condition. In the midst of unsurpassed plenty in all of the productions of agriculture and all the elements of national wealth, we find our manufacturers suspended, our public works retarded, our private enterprises of different kinds abandoned, and thousands of useful laborers thrown out of employment and reduced to want. Well, how do you like that? The same thing today, the richest country in the world, with hundreds of thousands of people losing their homes.
And jobs.
In the richest countries of the world, from 1857 to 2007. Eight. How do you like that? This guy was a prophet. I mean, this guy had a prophet. I think it has something to do with the capitalist system of society, right, where individual people can own 1 billion times what some other people have. And no way is ever found to distribute it. No. How about that? That makes you think maybe human beings are not so smart. Not so smart? So how much time? 5?
About 4.5 minutes.
All right, let's do...
5.
Now we're
5
up
minutes.
to Abe Lincoln.
5
Let's
minutes.
finish with him for this section. He had Horace Greeley, editor of a famous New York paper, was it the Tribune? Wrote a letter to Lincoln during the Civil War. Asked him about freeing the slaves, and he said, if I could save the Union by freeing the slaves, I would do it. If I could save the Union by keeping it half slave and half free, I would do it. And he also said, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. So he wanted to save the Union. And what was the Union? The Union was the dominance of the American economy by Northern capitalists. And who were they fighting for the dominance of American capitalism? The Southern plantation owners. So the Civil War was a dispute among the ruling classes as to who would govern, who would get all the profits of the tariffs or no tariffs of exports and sales abroad and so on. All the favors that government can give to its citizens. So that's what the war was about. And poor Abe, you know, he's considered the greatest president, but he executed deserters, too, because that would teach him a lesson. And once he had 20 deserters that were about to be deserted, they were about to be deserted by the president. They were going to be hung. And how much time do we have?
3 minutes.
All right.
4, close, 3.5.
Less time than the people to be hung at. Anyway, the mothers, the children, and the sweethearts and wives of the prisoners about to be hung all wrote letters to asking for mercy to the president. And the poor president, he decided, I think, to pardon 5 of them. And the poor dear had to go around and pick the best letter writers. Can you imagine the immense burden on Lincoln? And another thing that's little known about Lincoln, that when he was very young, he enlisted in the French and Indian War that was being fought out in the West somewhere, maybe in Michigan even. And he was going to be an officer fighting against, with some Indians and against other Indians. Only when he got to the front, the war had ended. There was a pact, so he never had to fight. But he got his chance to be at the government that killed hundreds of thousands of people. And let's see, so let's close on this code.
Yeah.
I don't know when we'll get back to the presidents again. But
All of them.
what?
Well, impeach the president generic.
Yeah, generic.
Okay.
Nobody should have the power that a president of America has. He can destroy the human race. No one should have the power over the atomic energy, atomic weapons, including all the Israelis and the Pakistanis and the Chinese and the French and the English and whoever else the hell has got them. No one should have that power. What do you say out there?
I don't think they should exist. I think that you have to wipe out the thinking that goes behind the creation of them.
America is the only one who's really used it, who decided to save lives by killing a few 100,000 Japanese. They did that for us, you know.
Yeah.
To save our lives. Save American lives. So, how much is how many foreigners are worth one dead American? I don't know. What's the use of talking like that? That's being, if there is a God, please impeach all presidents. No, we have to get rid of the system. It doesn't work.
You seem to want to say abolish the office.
It gives power to people that no one should have that much power.
Abolish
and it's not democratic. That's just a myth. And here, the U.S. is. We bring democracy, democracy, D-E-M-O-C-K-R-I-C. Oh yeah.